From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to OpenLine. So glad that you're joining us tonight on this cool and rainy night. There's no better place to be right there in front of your television. Joining us tonight for OpenLine, great topic, especially for all you full-time workers out there, maybe invested in a 401k. John Navin is here to answer your financial questions and help us out with getting the most out of this 401k. And also, we're going to throw out there, too, IRAs and Roths. If you have a question, go ahead and give us a call. The number is right there on the bottom of your screen, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. John, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
You know what? And it's a great time to talk about everyone's finances because we're getting into the holiday season here pretty soon. People are going to be spending money like crazy, and then we go, oh, I should be saving money. Yeah. So let's talk about saving money on the front end.
Okay.
Yeah. 401ks, I think 80%, I read, 80% of full-time workers have one of these things called a 401k. And probably about, what, 60% of us just kind of like let it be out there and don't manage it? Yeah,
well, there's a few issues that come up, and we kind of titled this today's show the taking control of your 401k and some things to be aware of. And definitely there are probably about 5 or 6 things to be aware of, and maintaining it or following it, just as you had mentioned, is one of them. So we have to make sure we know what our 401k is. A lot of times we sign up and then we just push this thing aside and don't even pay attention to it. So
we want to make this 401k work for us.
Yes.
And it can work for us, but you got to do it wisely.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, as I was reading through the research here a little bit, and this is very timely for me, just recently coming to News Channel 5, I'm about ready to enter into our 401k, and it is a benefit that a lot of companies do offer, but you do have to know what it's all about and see the big picture. And there were some drawbacks at least you should be aware of when it comes to the 401k. What are some of those that maybe people don't think of right at the top of their head?
Well, if you look at the 401k as the big picture like you're referring to, fees would be one of them. So we have to be aware of the fees that are inside the 401k and how they affect the performance. Your investment choices and how does that play into the rest of your retirement plan. The fact that you're limited in your investment choices inside the 401k is another barrier that sometimes people don't realize. That they think, oh my gosh, you know, I've got plenty of choices. Well, you may get 12, 15, 20, some plans may give you 40, but typically it's not a lot of plans. And probably the biggest thing that I see aside, well, in addition to some of those things, they don't have any guidance. So there's no one to take them by the hand and say, hey, you know, this is what you're supposed to do with your 401k. We're also seeing it from a fiduciary standpoint. The employer sometimes doesn't want to put his hand in and say, hey, let me help you with this. And so the employee thinks that somebody should help him. The advisor for these 401ks comes around once a quarter, so you never see him. And he's got maybe 12 minutes to spend.
Or it's a 1-800 number. Yeah. And that can be tough.
Yeah.
And you don't want to put all your eggs into just this one 401k basket.
That's correct.
What should you be doing with that 401k then?
All right, well, let's back up and go to the beginning.
Okay, that's a good place to start.
It's as good as any, I guess, right? So people start their 401k and they come in, and the 401k is a great benefit. Oftentimes your employer gives you a match. So one of the things you want to make sure of is analyzing where you are and how does the 401k fit into your whole plan. So you start your job, you get your 401k, everyone's excited, you're excited, welcome to Nashville, you're like, oh, now I can start my 401k, but what do I do? And developing that plan is the first part of it. So take a look and say, what do you want the 401k to actually do for you? Meaning we want it to grow, we want to save some money, but depending on what your age is and where you are in your time horizon and what other investment choices you have outside your 401k or investing that you're doing impacts how you invest in the 401k. So step one, I guess, is to really look at what you're trying to achieve inside the 401k. And some 401ks have great plan choices in a growth bucket, for example. So they may have some very, very good growth choices, but not so good balanced or short-term or bond choices. So maybe you want to do some of that type of investing outside of the 401k and then just use the 401k for your growth. That being said, create a plan. The next thing is to look and see how much can you actually set aside into your 401k. So what percent do you want to pull out or contribute? This probably sounds better than pull out. I would suggest going to, if a company's going to give you a match,
yes,
make sure you go at least to the match.
Because it's free money at that point, right? You don't want to just leave it on the table for someone else to get.
People come in, well, what kind of return can I get on my money? Well, you can get 100% on that money.
Right.
So take that money for sure and put that into the 401k. So at least go into the match. I think one of the things that we see too is that with that dollar amount that they're pulling out, people often think, well, I can't afford to do 3% or I can't afford to do 5%. The more you do now, the better it will be later. So if you can get to the match, get to the match. If you can do more, do more. The time value of money kicks in, so the more time you have in that plan, the better it's going to be. And then, yeah, just keep contributing is probably the biggest thing, at least to the match. The number that actually comes out of your paycheck is not as great as we might think it is, and that's where I was kind of debating if we were going to do a math problem or not.
Let's not do math. Let's leave that to everybody at home to do their own math. Let's stay away from math tonight and bring my calculator. No. But also in a second, we have Loretta on the phone. I'm going to get to Loretta in just a moment. I want to talk about, after we speak to Loretta, about the difference in the 401k and the Roth 401k and how the taxes are generated, because that's something that folks need to consider big time. But let's talk to Loretta real quick. Loretta, good evening.
Good evening.
All right, give us a question. What do you got?
Okay. Over the last quarter, the summer quarter, I lost $5,000, and I don't know exactly what happened. Can you tell me if there's something that happened during that quarter?
Yes.
Yeah, we had a lot of volatility in the last few months, right?
Yes, for sure. What happened in the last quarter, and I think what you're going to find more often than not, is the market's going to go through these cycles, and you're going to have peaks and valleys. So specifically, I think what was happening, we're talking about raising the interest rate. So some of that comes into play with money. We had some trouble with Greece, and there's some trouble with China. Looking at the big picture, though, most of the market looks pretty strong. But we throw in some of these things. Nothing goes from here to here. It's going to go like this. And so we're going to have these peaks and valleys. Some of that, or the other thing that I suggest to people, and Loretta, this probably applies to you, but is she still with us?
She sure is.
Can I ask her a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, good. Loretta, can I ask you how old you are?
Yes, I'm 55.
You're 55. All right. As you get closer to retirement, you're going to want to look to see how you can allocate that money or change it around so it's not all in such a growth bucket. Or I'll ask you another question. I don't want you to answer it out loud, but is $5,000 a lot of money? And if it is a lot of money, then you want to probably break that up to where you say, I don't want to take that much risk anymore. How do I reallocate that so it's not so risky? Because you're going to turn that money on for income eventually.
Right.
So we got to find different places to put some of that money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Loretta, thanks for being part of OpenLine tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
We have David on the phone as well. David, good evening to you.
Yes, my question is, at the time of your retirement, what are the best options for what you would do with that 401k?
What are the best options for your 401k?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, when the person retires from that employer.
I missed the first part. I'm sorry, David. I heard something about the employer.
When someone retires from the employer where he had the 401k,
yes.
What are the best options of what you will do with that?
Great question. Now I know where you're going. Perfect. Good question. You can do a couple different things. So the question was, if you are going to retire or you left that previous employer, what do you do with your 401k? Then we were chatting about that a little bit.
I have this very question. Thank you, David.
Yes. You can, and I would strongly suggest taking it out of the previous employer's plan. If you take it out of the previous employer's plan, and you can do this in one of a couple different ways, removing it from the plan puts it into your own individual IRA. That does two things. A, it opens up the universe of choice, so you can take that wherever you want to go. Whether it be stocks, bonds, mutual funds, annuities, CDs, you can buy anything you'd like and get more choices than you can inside the 401k. The second thing it does is it takes the employer's name off of your statement. And so I like that.
Yeah.
I'd rather have your own money here Now, they're not ever supposed to mix things up, and they're not ever supposed to get things convoluted, but anytime you can get your own name on your own money, I think it's a good idea.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, David, you can go different places. Again, it goes back almost to our first point. What are you trying to achieve with the money, and how do you invest it from there? But once you determine that, you can do something called a rollover. And so sometimes you get the paperwork from your employer. Some companies allow you just to make a phone call, so you can get on the phone and do it all over the phone. Some you can do it online. Some you have to send paperwork in. But it's basically a transfer or a rollover from the existing 401k plan to your individual IRA. You're never going to touch the money. You do not want to touch the money. If you touch it, they're going to tax you. If you take money out of the plan, then we're going to withhold 20% right away. Wow. And then the rest is subject to tax if you're less than, well, it's all subject to tax, but it could be subject to a penalty, or will be subject to a penalty as well if you're less than 59.5. So 20% withholding, a 10% tax.
You don't want to do that.
No.
Yeah.
No, roll it over. And it's not as hard as some people think, but I would suggest talking to a professional.
Find a financial advisor that you trust.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
David, thank you for being part of OpenLine. We appreciate your phone call tonight. We're going to take a quick break. If you have a question to ask about 401ks, about Roths, IRAs, go ahead and give us a call during this commercial break, and we will talk to you when we come back. Stay with us.